right? Like this show that we're doing, like we have comedians who are in different parts of the country, South, some are DC area, some are New York, and one Zahra's in California. You don't ever get to do that. So that is, I think, one of the few blessings, I think, in doing comedy online is you get to unite different comics from everywhere for one show at the same time simultaneously.
Thank you for carving time out of your schedule to meet, to chat.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Outside of the pandemic, many comedians would just drop on travel, going from state to state, family experiences, anything outside of the house for their stand-up comedy. But since we're all quarantined, where do you get those experiences for your jokes and your skits?
Well, for me, the idea that we're all living, I mean, for those of us who are privileged enough to be at home, are already living the same day, and that in itself is a material. That in itself is unusual that every day blends in, and I'm not sure if it's Wednesday or Friday, working from the same place. The only people I actually talk to in person are people who are paid to talk to me, like the grocery store clerk and the lady in my concierge desk, you know what I mean? So that is the funny part. Like I have a whole bit about how during this time of COVID-19, we're covering ourselves from head to toe. Men and women are staying each other 6 feet apart. Basically, we've all become Muslim, and which is true, right? We were right. Sherryn. So to me, that is the funny experience to draw upon, is that we're all sharing a common experience. A lot of us are, and that the fact that I'm not going out is in itself kind of funny.
So my next question is, although online comedy through Zoom and Skype are the new normal, how do you get audience feedback? And what do you think are the differences and similarities performing online and at a comedy show?
So there are similarities and differences. I mean, the key difference is the way that a good Zoom show works is if at least some of the audience members are unmuted and I'm able to see their faces. That to me is key. Because I've done comedy shows where it's like Facebook Live and I'm just talking to my phone. So I don't know what you're laughing at. I don't know what you're enjoying. And to me, that's just talking to myself, which I can do by myself quite well. But when you're doing a Zoom show with people who you can hear laugh, then at least you can have some of that connection and interaction. So I guess in that way, it's similar to a live performance where the audience is 5 feet in front of you. It's different because even when they are unmuted, it doesn't quite have the same resonance as being in a room where there's a spotlight on me and a microphone and you're forced to pay attention. But when you're at home, you have children running around, you have television in the background. So I have to compete as a comedian with 10 other things. Even the outdoor shows, right? Like Chappelle did an outdoor show, which was great, but he still had to compete with the birds chirping and the sunset. So I think that's the challenge, but the similarity is there's still some kind of person-to-person dynamic to an extent.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Thanks. One thing I do like, and I say one thing that is great, is this is the only time I've ever been able to perform with comedians from around the world at the same time, right? Like this show that we're doing, like we have comedians who are in different parts of the country, South, some are DC area, some are New York, and one Zahra's in California. You don't ever get to do that. So that is, I think, one of the few blessings, I think, in doing comedy online is you get to unite different comics from everywhere for one show at the same time simultaneously.
Since you're connecting with so many comedians internationally and you're seasoned, do you have any tips or advice for aspiring comedians who want to do stand-up online?
Yes. The best thing you could do is perform. Just get out there and try it. So there are a number of Zoom or other type open mics that you could do virtually and write your material, try it, and just try it. You're going to suck when you first start out. You are, and that's okay. That's how you learn to find your voice, what's funny and what's interesting. And I think when you keep trying it out, you'll learn that there's a difference between doing jokes for other people, like, oh, they'll like this, and doing jokes that you actually are interested in. And when you get more seasoned, you learn to do the jokes that you're interested in because audiences can read that you're not into it. It's like a date. You know what I mean? Like if you're on a date and you're saying the same 5 jokes over and over again, the person across from you can tell that you're not into it. But if you're really excited about it, I think that's infectious in a good way, the good kind of infectious. And I would recommend doing the open mics and trying things that you're interested in.
That's excellent advice, and it's so candid.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes a while to learn that. Because for a while I was like, oh, they're going to like this stuff. And I hate it. And I hated what I was doing. And then after a while, I'm like, no, this is my time. I'm going to do what I like. And I've learned that sometimes the more specific you are about your experiences, the more universal it is, oddly enough. You know, so I'm like specific about right now. So I'm Muslim, right? And my wife and I are expecting a boy. And we're really excited, but I was drawing upon the difficulty of finding, thank you. I was drawing upon the difficulty of finding a good Muslim boy name. Because pop culture in America, what do I got? The Lion King and Aladdin. So I have a bit where like the best place to find a good Muslim boy name is the FBI's most wanted terrorist watch list. Because there are names in there. But the point is that, okay, that's very specific to me, right? But everyone at some point either has had a kid or knows someone who's had a kid, has a sibling or has a parent, and they've all been in that situation of crap. What am I going to name this child and that they're going to be stuck with for the rest of their life? So by me being that specific, it oddly can be a little bit universal.
Since we're talking about family, what inspired you to get into comedy? Did you get family support?
You know, actually, this is a little bit unusual for the South Asian community, I realize, because there's always this stereotype of, you know, beta go study or something. But it turns out my parents were unusual. I grew up in North Dakota, a small town of 1,500 people. We were the only Desi Muslim community in 45 miles. So to get me out of trouble, I guess, my parents actively encouraged me to do music and acting. And I was, you know, trumpet performance scholar in college, and I did plays and stuff like that. So they were always very supportive of the creative arts. I mean, I have a day job, I'm a lawyer, but they always supported it. And I guess when I did plays, I noticed that I did better when I was doing comedy. And then later on in life, I tried comedy, and then some personal stuff in my life happened, and I was doing comedy then as a response. And then my mom and dad went to a comedy show of mine a couple of years ago, and they were still supportive, and they laughed.
Awesome. It's so rewarding.
It is. I highly recommend something like that, comedy or whatever it is that you find interesting, you know.
So I think in a previous question you talked about, I think engagement or energy or something similar to that. So stand-up is basically a conversation with energy.
Yeah.
So how do you personally get your energy and motivation in your day-to-day life?
Honestly, what happens for me is there are certain people in my life who I'm on a certain radio frequency wavelength with, right? Where when I talk to them, we can understand a language that, oh, okay, you can see that's funny. So my mom is oddly one of those people. My wife has a little bit of that, and a lot of my friends. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll have a conversation with them about an observation I have or they have, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's a bit. You know, that's funny. So then I'll write it down. I'm very politically involved. So like, for example, I had a conversation about so I'm a civil rights attorney, so race comes up to my head a lot. And for example, there was this, the horrible tragedy of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all these things have sparked conversations about, oh, well, now we have to rename things to be more respectful for those who are of color, right? Aunt Amamah. And then I was talking to my friends about, hey, isn't it kind of weird that Rhode Island is not the full name of the state? It was Rhode Island plus plantation something. And they just removed the word plantation from the official name of Rhode Island. Yeah, this just happened. Look it up. And I was blown away by the fact that, wait a minute. So different states have a secret racist name within the name of their state. So it could be like New Mexico and the Brownies. You know what I mean? Like these states could all have it theoretically. And so when I was talking about that with my friend, we both laughed. And then I'm like, oh, maybe there's something funny here. Maybe there's something deeper. So that's kind of how a lot of the comedy comes, is through conversations and observations. And then 1 a.m. in the middle of the night, I'll think of something funny, then I have to write it down because I'll forget it. So that's kind of how it comes, day-to-day living and conversations with people on the same radio wavelength frequency.
I like how your energy ebbs and flows based on conversation and what's going on in your life. So I have one last question. What do you wish to do after there's a viable vaccine when we can get back to our old normal?
What do I wish to do?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. Do you really think there's ever going to be a fully back to normal? I mean, I'm not trying to be pessimistic in the sense that, it's funny you mentioned this. I was talking to a comedian, my friend of mine, about this. So if I can give some context, a lot of people who do stand-up comedy in New York are leaving New York City because they're thinking, well, it's so expensive to live here. My job is mostly remote, my day job. Why am I living in an expensive city for $5,000 a month when I can go to Kansas City and live like a king and work from home? So I think the makeup of some cities, I think the makeup of how we live our lives, like, have you noticed that every generation's gotten more lazy? Like when I was a kid, we'd leave voice messages. Now I'm too lazy to listen to my voice message. I wonder if there's going to be another layer of, I'm too lazy to see you in person. Let's just do a video chat. I think that remote working is going to be a different change. I think the way we teach our kids to interact with other kids is going to be different. I'm thinking about, I'm having a son. Am I going to want him playing with other little kids now because they're going to get a virus? So I think that going back to normal, I don't know what that would be. But if it is exactly like it was 6 months ago, then I would want to get up there and do comedy just like it was again, but probably more reflective about consequences of not being prepared and maybe not being empathetic for those who are at risk. Sorry, it's a long answer.
No, the longer the better. And I like that you just touched upon so many topics that are affecting everyone. You went through like education, social interaction, the whole 9 yards. I thought that was a great answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.